stick it right up there. Okay, everybody, we'll start the meeting with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for bearing with us, everybody. Thanks, Dwayne. Can you hear us okay?
I'm hearing okay now.
Okay, thank you. Hope you're enjoying the weather. We'll start with the approval of the agenda. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Ryan, anything? No? Anything to add? Tim?
Well, we've got this resolution, which would go under the closed session under L.
Okay, when we reopen it back up.
That's right.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second? Thanks, Mel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to the consent agenda. Any questions for administration on the consent agenda, Ryan? Anything? Nope. Mel?
There was, just for a point of clarity, on the last meeting's minutes, under the notes that I'm having major technical difficulties, so I can't get to the exact point, but where we were talking about ICS and the contractor for the library, there's a part where it says they will be liable if anything goes wrong, and I just wanted it corrected as opposed to a pronoun to be ICS.
Okay.
Okay.
To make that change.
Thank you.
Change.
In that same little paragraph, can I make one other suggested change? In the third to last sentence, of the ICS library updates, where it says Attorney Left stated that this company has been set up as a shell. Can we change that to Attorney Left is concerned that this company has been set up as a shell? Have concerns.
Sounds good.
Okay, so you can just make those changes and bring it back to the next meeting?
Yep.
That'd be fine. Okay, so we'll take the minutes, we'll remove the minutes from this one. Anything else, anything you have, Dwayne?
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as changed. I'll make that.
motion.
Thanks, Dwayne. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ryan. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. On to F, Committee Report, 2021 EDA Annual Report. That's in your packet as informational from the EDA. They approved that report. Just share that with you with some of the accomplishments and things that we're working on at the EDA level. Are there any questions on that? I know Dan's gone, so I can answer them if anybody has any questions. Okay. Old business, body-worn cameras, G1.
Sure, included in your package, you've got a couple of items related to the body-worn cameras program that the police department's been taking a look at. There's a lot of information that's coming out. The state legislature is taking a hard look at this. The policy itself was reviewed at EMS meeting, and there's a process that we'd follow. So do you have time, Josh, just to discuss this a little bit for the council?
So eventually we'll have to have a public hearing for the public to weigh in on what the policy is, have the attorney review the policy. We reviewed it at the EMS meeting, but it's about a 6-month process to get the cameras ordered. There are some bills that have been introduced in the past to help with funding, so hopefully that will come this year, but we don't know if that will happen or not.
Okay.
So yeah, I think this is just informational tonight to kind of let you know where we're at in the process. I've been doing some pricing and checking on those and seeing what's available, and I know Nancy's going to be working with Josh to make sure that if we do end up doing a lease program, that we're able to make sure that it works well, kind of like what we did with the leases with the vehicles. So it'd be a similar way, instead of capitalizing, and she might work in a little different way with the auditors. So we'll figure that out. The other big concern I have is just the information storage. So there's a little bit more that, like I said, legislature is looking at right now. There's a number of different bills that are getting kicked back and forth with when is this available to be viewed, by whom, and so I have some concerns about that myself. So I don't know, Josh is going to be tracking it for us and kind of update us throughout the spring here.
Right now, most of it is classified as private data.
Okay. That's been the biggest thing. I know when we looked at this 3-4 years ago, floated the idea was the cost of the cameras, yeah, there's a cost, but it was more of the data storage and being able to retrieve that. That was gonna be the big ongoing cost going forward, so.
That's one reason I was looking, this lease program is paying, it's paying for the cameras and the storage, everything.
And storage, okay.
And then you get, new cameras after 3 years.
Okay. So it's just a package then, basically?
Yes, it was a 5-year package.
Okay. Good, well, I'm anxious to hear more. I mean, it's top of mind with everybody right now, and well, how do you feel be beneficial to the department and the community?
The general public, most people think most
Think you
law
already have
enforcement
them.
have it already.
Right.
Across the state, it's about 50% of the agencies have
Okay.
it, so.
You think it'd be beneficial for
Yes,
doing your job?
For evidence and just protecting officers.
Okay. All right.
I have a
Let
question.
us know what we need to do. Yep.
I have one quick question. And I know this is kind of preliminary because you said we're not ready to sign the contract, but this is the WatchGuard contract you're talking about?
Correct.
The paragraph 3 on the signing page, on the online terms acknowledgement, it references something, the section 12 disputes of the MCA is hereby incorporated into this acknowledgement, but there's no, I don't see section 12, so I have no idea what that is.
Okay. I don't know
So-
what that's referring to right now.
Okay. Preliminary.
We'll look at that when,
Okay.
if we get to that point where we're signing a contract.
Okay. Any other questions for the chief? I'm looking forward to seeing how we can get it going. So, all right, thank you.
Chris,
Yeah, Dwayne?
the only comments I had, I understand there's a lot of work yet to be done. My biggest concerns in reviewing all of this is, as Tim said, the data privacy, but I'm also wondering about chain of
Evidence.
conduct. Yeah, how is that being handled and by who? Do we need to establish policies, or does that have to be somebody independent from the police department in which is responsible for, keeping all of that private and controlling the data that's collected? I have a concern with conflict of interest, with all of the issues that have happened in the society today, and the questions on chain of command on all that, so, certainly we need to look at that a little bit harder.
Okay, and did you have something, chief, on that?
We are required to have an audit every 2 years of the entire policy and make sure that people aren't inappropriately accessing the data.
Okay, so through this program, you have access to it locally?
Yes, it's not stored locally, it's
Okay.
stored in the cloud, just like the rest of our
Okay.
cameras. Our videos are all stored in the cloud.
Okay. Okay, all right.
There is audit logs to who accesses it, and then we have to have an outside auditing firm come in every 2 years and do an audit.
Okay. Okay, so, Dwayne, that's something we can be looking at and make sure it's done, but it sounds like it's part of the package, so we'll make sure that we are aware of that.
Sounds great, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dwayne. Thanks, chief, appreciate it. New business H1 water rate study.
This should say wastewater rate.
Yeah,
Just
I
to
was
be
gonna
clear,
say,
there's
yeah,
a difference
so
between the
there's-
two.
The agenda says water rate,
Yeah,
and
that's
the
right,
wastewater's on the...
Yeah, right. Last year, we did a water and electric rate study, and we felt like the process went pretty well. It provided us with a lot of the feedback that we needed to help set the rates, and the council received those, received that presentation last year. Speaking with Nancy about it, we discussed, the last time there had been a wastewater study that was done, and she indicated, she wasn't exactly sure when, it had been quite a while. So we felt like it might make sense for us to take a look at that as well, to make sure that our rate structure is what it should be. We look at our costs every year and we try to match that to our incoming costs, but with the idea that the plant may have some expansion in the next 10 years, it's good for us to get a check. And so, what we're asking is for the council to approve this rate study. It will be taking place sometime during this year. MRAS is actually pretty well backed up right now, so they're not sure when they'd be able to get in the queue. But they are looking at, it's possible if somebody drops out or if they have some additional availability, they might be able to get in a little earlier. Otherwise, they'd be presenting hopefully towards the end of this next year, so we can set those sewer rates at the same time we are getting our budget. So total cost is $14,500, and it will be paid for by the sewer fund.
Okay. And it's been quite some time since we've done it. I've never heard of it.
No, I don't know,
since I've-
Nancy, she wasn't aware of one since she'd been here, so it may have been quite a while, so.
Okay. It makes sense to me. I mean, if we're gonna be setting rates, and know that we have to have some kind of projection and not just be randomly pulling that, so, makes sense to me. Do you need approval of
Yeah,
that?
if we could have a motion just approving that, we'd be glad to have that.
Okay. Any questions, Dwayne, since I can't see you?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, I'll look for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the spending of $14,500 for the MRES study to be done.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Dwayne. Resolution, H2, new business, resolution supporting housing and local decision-making authority.
Sure, this is a resolution the league has asked us to take a look at. We know that the local control issue has been a concern for our council and also many other cities throughout the state. So they're basically asking us to take a look at this, and if we're willing to approve this, we would approve it, and then we would forward on to our local legislators, letting them know that, well, you can read the resolution yourself, that we think that local control is best, especially when it comes to the land use issues. So, up to you. I don't think there's any problem with us approving it. It doesn't lock us into anything or anything like that, but it would be kind of a resolution of support for local decision-making on housing and land use.
Any questions from that, or for that, from anybody? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve. Local control is never a bad thing.
I'll make the motion.
So
Thank-
moved.
Thanks, Mel. Dwayne, do I have a second?
You do.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 3, ice arena project.
And I can address this, or you can as well, Mr. Mayor. Recently attended the Ice Arena Board meeting, which was interesting. We did a review of the financials from last year, their budget performance. They did have a large capital project that they moved forward last year with replacing of all the Freon in the system, which is great. They have a much more environmentally conscious cooling agent they're using now, which is nice. It also is a reduction in cost for us, which is a positive. They are looking at this project this year. It's a capital project doing a retrofit of the lighting. So I'm not asking for approval for tonight for this particular project, but I think that the board would like to know if the council is willing to pursue a lighting retrofit this year. I guess the county board will be also taking a look at that. So we typically split the costs of the ice arena, the cost of capital projects and operations with the county board. So they're looking at basically authorizing a project to move forward with pricing and things like that. This is from December, so it would have to be updated anyways. So that's basically what we're looking for, is just to allow us to move forward, get some numbers, and see what makes sense.
And the key part of that is that original capital project of the Freon replacement and fixing all the leaks costs much less, because we've been setting money aside for a full replacement over a 10-year period. Well, there was a fix that came available that wasn't available before, so it cost much less. So the money's already been allocated for a project. This is another project, and it's about a 3.5-year payback. So if we spend some of that money we already had allocated to Freon, it wouldn't be any more contribution from the city or the county. They've already got the money, just basically give them the go-ahead. And basically in 3.5 years, it will pay for itself, and we'll be saving that much energy, because there's a lot of lights in that building. So it's not an ask or anything. So any questions or concerns or comments on that?
Were we looking at trying to tie that with the energy savings with the liquor store?
So that is something, and
They're
Nancy's
gonna
working with Frontier Energy, which is our utility. They work with our electric utility partner to do some energy audits. And one of those will be done, whether it's through Frontier Energy or with ICS for the liquor store, but also, actually, all the public buildings will be going through those energy audits. And Nancy's got that project. She's kind of heading that up, working with Margit from Tier. So that would be something that they'd be working on this year, absolutely.
Yeah, so,
Does the ICE have to come out for that at all?
no.
Not for the audit, certainly, and then I don't think it would not be necessary for the removal of lights either. They'll do it piecemeal, they'll do them at one at a time until they've got it all turned over. So
There'd be no plans of taking the ice out, except for something catastrophic, 'cause that's a huge expense to put it back in. And 30 to 60 days of not having ice, because it takes a while to build it back up. Yeah, so they'd put the floor in over the top of it, or whatever they'd have to do to,
Mass or whatever.
Yeah. so, yeah, we're not taking the ice out. Any other questions on that? Do you need a motion?
I don't know if I need a motion, but it sounds like we can move forward with getting a project together, and then
Okay.
what we'll do is we'll bring those project terms back after we've got that energy audit done, and just, wanted to bring it to your attention that that's moving forward then, so.
Okay, thank you. On to the administrator's report.
So you've got my report there. a lot of things going on. We'll be talking about a few other things later this in the meeting here, talking about some of the land use and transactions there. EDA had a very busy meeting last week. Some exciting things coming. We've got a potential for the Chaotic Brewing folks to acquire a building and start their brewery at a more of a commercial, which I think from us, from a planning and zoning thing, we appreciate that because it actually will help clean up a sort of a planning and zoning issue where we had to give some variance or conditional use for that, get out of a residential area. Looking at supporting that with a loan as well. The city attorney was just discussing with me earlier, we are looking at selling that coffee roast, the Trail Creek Coffee Roasters building to them. It was formerly the library, the city library. City's owned it for some time. We're looking at transacting that, which is also real positive, I think. And then childcare is something that the folks are taking a look at for the community ed. They're working with a number of different possible partners. One thing I'm really proud of our staff and the hard work that they put in with the water loss numbers. This is something I know I brought up last year and the year before that. We were able to get the water loss down from 29% in 2019 to this year we're looking at only 17%, which is still higher than I'd like it to be, but it's a substantial improvement. And a lot of it is due to the work that Cassie and Dave did with other staff people as well, doing a full audit of all the accounts, correcting those amounts that were off and getting that number to a much more palatable number. The goal for us, the reason that we look to reduce that is, first off, of course, it's energy conservation, treatment conservation, and it also that it means there's less chemicals that we're using in the plant to treat water, chlorine, that sort of thing. So I think with the Highway 57 rebuild, we're also going to be seeing some greater efficiencies. We'll have leaks tied up. We'll have a lot of, as you guys are all aware, there's a number of water leaks that have happened along that 57 corridor on different intersections. So just something I'm really proud of our staff and all the time they put in there. And then the last thing I guess I would talk about is the legislative session. So there are a lot of things going on, a lot of moving pieces. We're tracking that. Very quickly, the redistricting is going to come to head next week. The courts take over, and I suspect that won't take them very long to come up with a map. They are officially going to take over on the 15th, and it's possible they'll have a map the same day, or maybe they'll make it look good and they'll wait a couple days, but I think they've kind of already got their idea of what's going on. Otherwise, that's something we'll be tracking. The library renovations, I've been sending out those email updates weekly. So far, it seems to be going well. I met with the library board last night. They talked a little bit about it, and Pat is doing a great job over there as well. So other than that, I think I'd take anyone's questions.
Okay. Any questions for Tim? Thank you. Appreciate it. Yep. On to engineers report.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Everyone's favorite topic tonight, special assessments for our Highway 57 project. Past projects in the town have utilized special assessments to recover some of the costs that the city does incur with these projects. And past direction from the council was to bring special assessments forward, so that's what we're talking about tonight. In your council packet are two items, a resolution for your consideration and a feasibility report. Before I kind of jump into those, I'll give a real high level on what we're doing. Ultimately, this is the first step in a multi-month, multi-step, multi-hearing process. It's administrative heavy for staff, so there'll be some different resolutions and things for the staff, the council to consider in the future. Quick overview on what special assessments are. Ultimately, charging back the benefiting property owners for the benefit of a project. This is, again, the first step of the two public hearings that we have with all the affected property owners. The first one is going to be the assessment hearing on the project, and that's what's in the resolution tonight, to call that meeting, which is proposed for a council meeting, I think 4 weeks from tonight, which is on the 9th. That is the first step. In the second step, before we get to the second one, we will send out mailings, we'll send a newspaper to all the affected property owners, to be in the newspaper twice, to call that public hearing at the meeting in 4 weeks. That'll be the first step. That meeting is thumbs up the project or thumbs down the project, whether or not we want to continue with special assessments. We make the decision we're moving forward with special assessments. We ultimately have more resolutions that say we're going to continue, and then we ultimately have a large second hearing called the assessment hearing. That is kind of the drop dead point that we set the amount, and that's the way it is. We will notify the property owners of what we're thinking for that meeting. Property owners are welcome at the public hearing to give their opinion of the cost and why they may not think that that assessment is that much of a benefit at that meeting, and then ultimately the council will consider setting the amount to be assessed, and that's ultimately the council's decision. and then there's some other things we'll talk about at that point on what happens next, but those are the two public hearings that we will have. So for tonight, in your council packet is a feasibility report. We talked about 57 in some great detail, so I won't get into here unless you'd like to go through every item. I'm more than happy to, but I'll just keep it high level. As we're all aware, we're moving forward with 57 reconstruction. We talk about some of the existing conditions, why we're doing what we're doing. It's our most important kind of project from a roadway perspective. Obviously, it takes a lot of our traffic, but also our utilities are in the worst shape there. The city administrator mentioned all the water main breaks we've had along there. We've kind of Swiss cheesed that road, if you will, with our water main breaks. Same thing with our sanitary sewer in very poor condition. We've had flooding on Main Street, closed down local businesses, so we're going to increase the capacity of the storm sewer system. You can see the proposed construction in there. Ultimately, a full reconstruct, very similar to other reconstruct projects. So the proposed constructions lay out what we're doing. And we have opinion of probable cost. As you can see there, that cost estimate has gone up since we first looked at this project in 2017. It's been quite some time. We've seen some ultra inflation in our business. And we do have an existing agreement with MnDOT to pay a portion of their roadway cost. Our utilities are in their roadway, so it's kind of a process to go through with MnDOT on getting our utilities fixed and getting them to pay for as much as the road as we can, because ultimately we're in there right away. So you can see a little note in there that we are expecting, or MnDOT is going to be sending a city an agreement to up their cap to $4.5 million to help offset some of those costs. I think we're pretty close to where kind of cost participation-wise where we were going to be with MnDOT before we've had price increase, the roundabout discussion, that sort of items in there. So I'm a little more comfortable with the number we're at now. That can be something we can talk about at a later date as we move forward. But that agreement will be coming to the council here in a short time. And then there's some Dodge County work as proposed as part of the project, and they're going to be part of the cost participation for County 34. Recommended schedule, we ultimately lay out there the steps to start the special assessment process, which is tonight, and then we'll be back again at that second hearing at a later date. We show May in there, but that's going to be something we can talk about at a future date. In addition to that, we do have a very preliminary assessment based on kind of what the myself as the engineer kind of came up with a map and potential benefiting properties that we'll have to work through. We don't need to know that for this first meeting. We're going to say, we have a project, we're looking at assessing this much, we reserve our right to change that, but ultimately, give us your input at the first meeting, we'll consider that, develop the final assessment, roll up the second assessment hearing. That's the gist of the feasibility report. We have a large cost breakdown for the project shown in there. Excuse me. And we have funding breakdown on how we're going to fund that project is in the feasibility report, and then I have provided a draft of the benefiting properties, and then how I'm proposing or recommending to the city at this point on how to proceed. So we don't need to resolve that tonight. What we are looking for tonight is probably two things. Number one, considering this feasibility report, passing the resolution to call that first project or hearing on the project, and then secondly, providing staff direction on how to proceed with setting the amount to be assessed to the property owners, so we can start looking at the properties individually to say, this is how we want to assess them, this is the benefit, this is what we think is ultimately equitable for our citizens and our benefiting property owners. So those would be the two things we're looking at tonight. So I'll pause there, answer any questions you may have.
I just have one question. Looking at the numbers and then looking at the resolution. So the number that's in the feasibility study for assessments is $794,848, and that's on page 4, I think, or, yeah, page 3 and 4 there. The number that's available in that notice is $715. And I think that the higher number is probably the one that you intended, but I just wanted to make sure that before we pass a resolution that we have the right number in there.
Yeah, it's what our intent is at this point, so let's just go with the higher number and modify the resolution if we're passing.
Just so when we approve that, we have the right number.
Because that number will change too.
Yeah, I know it's all up to how much the project ends up costing, but.
Yeah, that's the other thing is, do we assess this before or after the project costs are defined? Since we have kind of a lot on the table with MnDOT, that's something we can talk about, and if the costs do rise, because I'm a little concerned over, what's that?
Till we get the bid back?
Till we get the bid back, something we can consider in the future, but we need to have this first hearing, get that ball rolling. I'm obviously, with all of our construction projects, a little worried what's happening in our business, in the construction world with procurement of materials and everything else, but at the end of the day, we got to continue to move forward, because it's a project that we've been on our wish list for some time, so, yeah, so that's the gist of the feasibility report.
Okay. Any questions for Brandon on the feasibility report? Okay. So you need two motions from us tonight. One to approve the feasibility report.
Just pass the resolution, part of that resolution is including,
Okay.
accepting the feasibility report and kind of rolling it into the project documents.
Okay.
So it'd just be passing the resolution and then again the staff direction, just
Okay. All right, so any questions for Brandon? Dwayne, do you have any questions for Brandon?
I do not.
Okay. All right, so we're just getting the ball rolling tonight, because we gotta get to that public hearing on March 9th.
correct.
So the resolution to call the public hearing on March 9th for the Trunk Highway 57 improvement, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second? Thanks, Mel. So we'll call the public hearing for 30 days from now, which, or 28, whatever it is, March 9th is our first meeting in March, will be the public hearing for what we're approving tonight. So,
And then staff will roll out the mailings to the newspaper and
Yep.
also the individual property owners that we're looking at assessing, so we'll attend the meeting on March 9th.
okay, perfect. All in favor, say aye. Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution passed. Second, we need to give, I would like to have, to get the details rolling on this, we went through this the last time with the last project. We had city engineer, public works, city administrator, and then one or two council people get together to go over the assessment process and the units and all that kind of stuff, how we're gonna do it. So I'd like to have you guys, you and Brandon kind of spearhead that, get Charlie involved, because he was there last time. And then, do I have anybody on the council that would like to do that? I'm gonna stay off of that, because I may or may not have a property that may or may not be involved, so, and Mel has already said she doesn't have time or can't commit to it. You be interested, Ryan, at all?
It depends on the timing, but yeah.
Yeah, so these guys, and I think Brandon said we could email you the information of that, and then we could talk and that kind of thing, but, if you wouldn't mind doing it, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
I'm willing, yes.
Yeah, okay. And then if you need anything else, just let council know, or
Yeah,
or if you
absolutely.
think you
No,
want
I think,
somebody else, but,
we'll definitely have that conversation, so.
okay.
Mayor, just to interject, so the direction is work with this subcommittee group. We'll
Absolutely.
provide a recommendation back to the council meeting.
Correct.
We may have that in 2 weeks, or we may have that, at that assessment hearing, or excuse me, the hearing on the project in 4 weeks, so.
Okay.
Yep. Provide a recommendation and come up with what the staff and council would recommend.
Makes sense.
Yep, and I think just the biggest thing from council, or from where I sit, whatever it is we need to be consistent, because we just did a project like this. So I would just encourage staff and everybody, I mean, I know that's what you do, that's your job, but just to be consistent, because if I'll somehow deviate from this wildly, where it's completely different than the last one, now you're gonna have everyone on third, fourth, and fifth who paid their assessments not happy, and they shouldn't be. You know, I mean, so we need to stay consistent
I
with
would say
what
we're
our
gonna utilize
policy is.
the assessment policy the city has,
Right.
which was shared at a previous council meeting, and we'll be using that to guide our,
Okay.
project scope forward. So absolutely, consistency is what we're looking for.
Yep.
With 82 possible REUs, residents, I'm assuming, are units.
Residential equivalent.
Yep. Are we thinking of holding that in a larger space, in case we have a bigger turnout for the second hearing?
We can determine that, I think, after the first hearing. I think the first hearing, last time we did this, the first hearing, we didn't have that many people, because bottom line, you don't wanna say the project's going through.
Yeah.
The state's gonna do the highway, whether we tell them that, it's going through. The second one, when it's actual, the dollar amounts on the table,
That's
you'll
what-
probably have 80 to 100 people show up.
Yeah, I think it's very likely we would try and utilize the facility at the school.
We did the forum room last time up to school, so,
That's what I was getting at,
yeah,
yeah.
we can cross that bridge when we get there, so, it'll be fun. Any other questions on that? Thanks, Brandon, for putting that together. Thank you guys for getting together and getting the recommendation back to the council, too. Appreciate it. Okay, on to the attorney's report. We're gonna have two closed sessions tonight. The first one is to discuss union negotiations. That will be recorded, and then we'll have a second closed session to discuss potential real estate sale regarding the Vale property. And we'll reopen the meeting after both of those are done to conclude any business that needs to be done. And we'll close the meeting at this time. And if you decide to go home for the night,